In the darkness of despair, where hope seemed a distant memory, Baisala Saidi defied odds and refused her spirit to be broken. Crawling around her small compound, this woman fights a daily battle of survival as she has to accommodate her disability in the world which is not designated to accommodate her. Ever since she was born, her life has been a combination of heartbreaks and suffering, as many people wrote her off, thinking that she was about to see her last days. But little did they know that within the depth of her soul, a flame burned fiercely, waiting to ignite a revolution of resilience and triumph. Against all odds, Baisala, who was born normal, is a mother of 4 grown-up children who she believes will be her ticket to see a well-deserved rest in her late life. But how did she get disabled? And in which way did she manage to raise her children? My name is Baisala Saidi. I'm 55 years old. I'm a mother with 4 children, including 3 girls and a boy. As the firstborn in her family, Baisala had always felt the urge to be an example to her young siblings and help her parents in their tedious journey of raising them. She was of full energy and optimism until she was 7 years old, when she started to develop certain complications on her legs. The complications were slow at first but grew bigger as she matured, until the time she was not able to move on her legs. My testimony is very tragic. I was born normal with both legs, but when I was 7 years old, I started to develop complications on my legs. Since then, my sickness developed and enlarged, occupying other parts of my legs and restricting me to walk. At first, I could feel tired as I made long journeys, and the length of the journeys I could make faded as time passed on. It reached a point where I could not stand on my feet, nor could I walk. At that point, I started to crawl on the ground like a little child. When Baisala got sick, her parents never imagined what could follow. But as the sickness progressed, so did they double down on their efforts to treat her. As they traveled across the country visiting various hospitals, both traditional and modern medical centers. However, it reached a point they could not afford such endeavors, as they were raising other children as well, and that's the point they completely stopped to take her to the hospital. My parents did everything in their power to treat me. They took me to the traditional doctors who failed to help me, and later on, they would take me to modern medicine who also failed to help me. As time passed on with no progress in regard to my recovery, they ran out of money and the pursuit of my treatment receded considerably. As she grew, Baisala came to meet a man who impregnated her, and she delivered her first child. Her first pregnancy was not planned. A few years later, a second man appeared, and they had their second child together before a third man showed up and impregnated Baisala, who delivered twins thereafter. However, Baisala struggled to raise her children as their fathers never took the responsibility to provide for their children. As a result, Baisala struggled enormously to raise these children alone, and added to her disability, she was on the brink of complete capitulation. My first pregnancy was not planned, but the man who impregnated me never actually followed up with the support. It was my mother who cared about me after I gave birth. The second man had promised to marry me, but after we had our child, he abandoned me because of my disabilities, thinking that I'm not worth living with him. As such, I struggled to raise my children alone since I had limited abilities to make money and improve their lives. I depended on my parents for a long time, and later on, my other siblings would lend me a hand. Throughout her life, Baisala relied on her siblings who offered her some help whenever she was pregnant while living alone. One of her young sisters who had to help her is Amina, a mother of 4 children who is 36 years old. She decided to move in with her sister after she visited her and realized that she was in much struggle living alone. There was a time I came to visit her and my heart sank when I realized the amount of problems she was going through alone. She would struggle with everything she needed, from cooking to cleaning the house and doing other necessary domestic activities. I noticed that she needed someone to help her, and I decided to ask my husband to relocate here so that I could be able to help her. Her husband agreed that they should relocate, but Amina had to go first since the man had a job in the city. He promised that he would eventually come to live with her, but this was a lie since the husband had seen another young woman in the city whom he married as soon as Amina left. When I presented my idea, my husband agreed and promised to come to visit us often. But ever since then, he has never visited us, but chose to marry another woman. I had to pay the ultimate price of my marriage to support my sister. What shocked me the most was the fact that I had been living with my husband for 3 years, and I never imagined that he would leave me just like he did. Today, these women are struggling to survive, given that none of them have a sustainable job. Amina, who should be working, spends most of her time taking care of her sister and their very old house. If their neighbors don't provide for them with food, they can go days without eating. When you enter their house, you can easily sense the magnitude of their poverty. There are very few possessions in the house, and Baisala sleeps on the small bed. They wish to get a house to live in and a modern wheelchair, which Baisala can use to commute around her neighborhood. Our biggest priority is a house to live in. I have very little opportunities to work, and we depend on neighbors for food and rent. If we can find our own house, it would help us settle peacefully. I also need a wheelchair. I have made this wheelchair, but it requires a lot of energy to drive it, and it breaks down every time. If I manage to find a modern wheelchair, it will free me up and allow me to move easily. You can help Baisala to buy her own house through givinglife.com, with links found in description and pinned in top comments. The overwhelming tragedy of life can break our spirit and weaken our hearts, but our zealous nature to survive can pave the way for our better future. Thank you for watching. I'm Elijah and this is Afrimax English. Remember to subscribe.